So we're going to jump right back in. For our third session, we have Elizabeth, Lieutenant, and Lindsay, Inge.
Yay, you got it right.
They are virtual presenters. They're coming from University of Maryland at College Park and Catholic University of America down in DC and Maryland, which is awesome. So we're getting them online now, I believe, and they're presenting student leaders, student teachers, embedding diversity into LIS education through iDiversity's curriculum development project. And again, I just want to remind everybody, when we do a question and answer session, speak really directly into the mic so that we can record things well and make sure that we're all being heard. And again, remember to drink some water, take some breaks, enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. This is Elizabeth, Lieutenant. Can everyone hear me before I dive in? Okay, great. So again, good morning, and thank you so much for attending today. We first wanted to start off by extending a lot of love and appreciation to the DERAIL Forum planning crew for organizing, publicizing, and facilitating this really important event. My co-presenter, Lindsay, Inge, and I are really grateful that this forum and these conversations are open to students outside of Simmons College. We're having a lot of important conversations today, and we appreciate helping to extend this conversation across LIS education programs. Lindsay and I are here today to discuss how students can promote diversity, exercise agency, and advance LIS education through iDiversity's curriculum development project. So this is a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. Our main goal for this presentation is to encourage and enable you, our fellow students, whether you're at Simmons or you're watching virtually from another school. We really want you to consider how you could adopt this type of project within your own LIS program. So we'll start a presentation by providing some background on iDiversity, which is a student group at the University of Maryland College Park's College of Information Studies, which is informally referred to as the iSchool. Then we'll review the purpose and history of iDiversity's curriculum development project before drilling down into some project management 101 and infrastructure building. Finally, we'll wrap up with our project outcomes and future plans before opening the floor for some audience questions and reflection. So iDiversity is a student organization that aims to promote diversity, inclusion, and accessibility within the iSchool and the LIS field. It was founded in January 2012 by Rebecca Oxley, who was a student in the iSchool's Information and Diverse Population Specialization. Over the years and across new iDiversity leadership, iDiversity has had a substantive impact on LIS education scholarship. Our former student organization leaders have published their work in the Library Quarterly, as well as the book Perspectives on Libraries as Institutions of Human Rights and Social Justice. They've also presented the message of iDiversity at the ALA's Midwinter Conferences and the Maryland Symposium on Diversity in LIS Education. And we're really excited to be presenting this message to you all at the DERAIL Forum today. So this is the mission of iDiversity. We seek to actualize this mission to improve inclusion in information through a project-based organizational model. Students in iDiversity and in the iSchool itself, as well as students outside of the iSchool, as I am a student at the Catholic University of America, we all come together to carry out projects for local libraries, the university, and community groups. So for example, this academic year, we led a privacy workshop for undergraduate students. We ran a captioning project to make the iSchool's YouTube videos more accessible. And we also planted a little free library in one of our communities off campus. We've also engaged in some community building within the iSchool by hosting movie nights. We just had one last night, collaborating with other student organizations to host happy hours, and reviving our Twitter account. So this semester, Lindsay and I have been working to revive iDiversity's curriculum development project, which Lindsay will tell you a little bit more about.
Hey everyone, this is Lindsay. Can you hear me okay too?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So the purpose of iDiversity's curriculum development project is twofold. The first is to incorporate discussions of diversity, inclusion, and accessibility into every iSchool course at the University of Maryland. Right now, the iSchool offers a specialization in diversity and inclusion, which was formerly called the Information and Diverse Populations specialization. But we feel really strongly, and I'm sure that you do too, that every course in the iSchool should be addressing social justice issues, which we see as a core value of the profession. The second goal of the project is to offer LIS students agency in their own education. By engaging in curricular evaluation and design, LIS students are able to take an active role in shaping the iSchool program and preparing future LIS professionals to contend with issues of diversity and inclusion. For students who are interested in pursuing careers, okay, I'll try to be louder, sorry. For folks who are interested in academia or going into a career as an academic librarian, it's really valuable to get this curriculum design experience while we're still in grad school, because typically that's the type of thing that you wouldn't get experience in until you were on the job. The project also offers LIS students the opportunity to gain experience in project management, which is a key skill for all LIS professionals, regardless of the institution they hope to work in. So far, iDiversity has completed curriculum development suggestions for 2 syllabi. The first syllabus we tackled was for Library Science 602, which is Serving Information Needs. This is a core course that all iSchool students in the MLS program are required to complete within their first 12 credits of the program. Because this course is so important to the MD iSchool, we were really pleased that the instructor asked us to contribute to the syllabus, and we were excited that that was our first foray into this project. The second syllabus, which we just recently completed, was for Library Science 706, Seminar in International and Comparative Library and Information Science. This course is an elective, and it's not required for any of the specializations within the iSchool. But the instructor, who is really interested in studying information science in a global context, asked iDiversity to review this syllabus because she would really like for it to become part of the diversity inclusion specialization. So she wanted to know ways that she could incorporate those themes to make the class a candidate for that specialization. For both syllabi, we started by looking at the readings and weekly discussions that were already in place. We then suggested 2 to 3 additional talking points for each week, which were questions that we think could prompt thoughtful discussion about the week's theme through the lens of diversity and inclusion, or maybe even talking about what diversity and inclusion would mean for that particular topic. We also suggested several additional readings for each week and included a brief summary with each article. The goal was not to completely rewrite the syllabi, but to offer the instructors multiple suggestions that they could choose from to strengthen their syllabus.
Okay, so now we're going to kind of dive into Project Management 101. As the DERAIL planning crew will probably be able to tell you, coordinating a student-led project takes a substantial amount of work. It is very much like herding cats, trying to get everyone on the same page and work together to advance this common project goal. Recruitment for this curriculum development project needs to take place both within the student body as well as through outreach and engagement with faculty and instructors who would want to have their syllabus reviewed by us. Regular and frequent communication as well as clear leadership in program coordination is crucial to the success of this particular project. In addition, make sure that using technology to its fullest advantage has been really helpful for us. Google Docs has been great for crowdsourcing contributions from other iDiversity student officers, and Google Chat has been a good way for Lindsay and I to maintain communication between face-to-face meetings. Finally, this project needs a lot of motivated people, faculty, as well as a lot of students. But it requires more than just a commitment to social justice work. The students contributing to and leading this project have a particular level of privilege to take on this type of project. Not all LIS students can take on the type of uncompensated labor that's associated with improving LIS education. So moving forward, and if you're considering adopting this within your own program, it's worth considering how to support and incentivize students who don't necessarily have the privilege of time to take on this type of project. So one of the things that's really also important is having the infrastructure in place. Personally, infrastructure building is one of my passions. It's some of the most important work that one can do for future success and project sustainability. Because without it, you're kind of just reinventing the wheel and have stops and starts, and it's really important to have. True confession on my part, I had attempted and in all honesty failed to get any traction on leading this project on my own. I came in as a solo leader at the end of last fall semester, and I didn't have any documentation or guidance on how to revive this project. I was just given a syllabus to work with and a roster of students who expressed interest in this project. It was really only when Lindsay joined on with me as project co-leader that we were able to get some traction, and I've been incredibly grateful to be able to work with her on this. So I'm going to be graduating in a few weeks, and we'll soon be handing off this project to Lindsay, who herself is graduating at the end of the year. So moving forward, I've been thinking a lot about how to create stronger support systems and infrastructure to ensure that this project is sustainable under new leadership. And my short-term goal before I graduate is to develop some documentation and directions that can help this project's future leaders at Maryland's iSchool. And this will also help student leaders in other LIS programs, as well as students in other academic units at Maryland to start this project themselves.
So like Liz said, the project management and infrastructure building aspect were definitely the hardest aspects of this project when we first got started. But now that we have 2 syllabi under our belts and a better idea of how to organize the workflow of the project, I'm really optimistic about the program's potential for future growth. So far, we have only advertised the curriculum development project on a really small scale. So it started as contacting instructors who we had had classes with and asking them if they might be interested, but we really hadn't taken it to the entire iSchool. So the next step would be more rigorous marketing to make sure that all of the iSchool instructors are aware of the project and know how to get in touch with us if they would be interested in collaborating. We think that targeting new adjunct instructors, which we have a lot of at the iSchool, might be especially useful, since these folks are newer to the institution and may be more open to collaborating on a syllabus. We would also like to review syllabi for the core courses of the MLS program and approach instructors with our suggestions, even if they don't approach us initially. If the instructor is interested in those initial suggestions that we have, we would then move to do a more complete review of the syllabus, offering talking points and recommended readings. And then finally, we would also like to create an inventory or something sort of like an annotated bibliography of articles and journals that focus on diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. So this inventory wouldn't be tied to a specific syllabus, but instead it would be an online resource for all LIS students and instructors to draw from. We think that this could be a really great way to scale the project up and expand it to LIS programs beyond the University of Maryland. Because this project is still so new, and because we're really interested in collaborating with other LIS students, which again is why Liz and I were so excited to join all of the students at Simmons for this, we have some questions we'd like to pose to you. First, how do you think LIS curriculum designers can more fully incorporate diverse, socially just, and critical perspectives? How can complementary student leadership methods work in tandem with this project? How can we better support students who contribute their intellectual and effective labor to improving LIS education? How do you think a project like this could be successfully adopted in your own LIS program? And as an extension of that, how do you think LIS students can collaborate across programs? Do you think the idea of an online inventory or bibliography of diversity inclusion articles could be useful or a good way to collaborate across programs? So we're really interested in hearing your perspective on all of these questions, and we would love to hear any questions that you have for us as well.
Does anyone
So-
have a message or question, maybe in the chat box, or someone in the room? If any of the organizers could give us an indicator.
Questions in here. Hello?
Yes.
Okay, so this project sounds really amazing, and one of the things that I would like to know is, especially if you're creating this online inventory of articles about social justice and inclusion in the field, I wanted to know if that's something that you have considered opening up to have people submit articles and annotations, because that would be a really great way to also integrate what you're doing into like a kind of almost an assignment type activity that could be integrated into classes.
That's actually a great idea. I think that, you know, I believe that the more people who work towards common goals and the more diverse perspectives that we can include, just not within, you know, the iSchool, would be fantastic. Lindsay, do you have kind of an idea for scaling that part of the project out?
Yeah, and so I can't see a show of hands or anything, but I'm guessing at least a few people here are involved in CritLib or have followed those Twitter conversations. And so the idea for this online inventory really came from the CritLib website, where they have a running list of recommended readings. And so I envision it being something like that, where people could collaborate, any LIS students or LIS professionals, I think would be really great. Everybody loves CritLib.
And you can't see, but there are some nodding heads happening over here.
Great. Very good.
We have another question from our social media table.
Hi, we have an online question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. What about GitHub? It could be a great way to share resources.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of your question.
What about GitHub? It could be a great way to share resources.
Oh, I've never tried that. Liz, have you used that?
I am incredibly non-technically savvy. So I know that GitHub exists and it is a thing, but I've never used it myself. Fortunately, the iSchool at UMD is pretty large, so I'm sure that there might be a student who would be willing to facilitate that, or even someone who is interested in contributing to this project, but not a University of Maryland iSchool student. Definitely get in touch with us on our next slide. Shoot us an email, or you can also contact the iDiversity UMD Gmail account. We'd love to kind of be able to work together across other LIS programs.
And I also have a plug for another iSchool initiative. Right now we're starting a new open access journal. It's called the International Journal of Information, Diversity, and Inclusion. So if any of the people who are presenting here today or any of the participants who are also interested in these topics, I really encourage you to submit to this article or to this journal, because I think this is the type of place where, like, these would be the type of readings that we would want to include in our courses. So I'm really excited about building that journal up and having that be another space where we can collaborate.
Is there a website for that journal?
Is there a website for that journal?
Yes, there is, and unfortunately the URL is extremely clunky. I can send this to anybody, but it's publish.lib.umd.edu/IJIDI.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions for you as well. I think we have another from Twitter.
Advice for students to ask administration to incorporate methods in curriculum.
I didn't hear that question in full. Could you repeat it?
Okay.
Oh, okay, great. What is some advice for students to ask administration to incorporate methods into curriculum? We're talking specifically about research methods, or?
Maybe just some facilitation methods.
Oh, okay. So fortunately, the iSchool at University of Maryland, I have found their faculty to be pretty receptive and supportive of taking student feedback into account. sometimes it just requires sitting down and kind of trying to have a face-to-face conversation with someone and say, you know, I took this particular class, or I was interested in this class, but there are also some opportunities to kind of incorporate additional material or alternate perspectives. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, within my own experience. Lindsay, do you have any advice for kind of working with program administration?
Yeah, I would say that we're really lucky at the iSchool because our current director, Paul Yeager, is very much invested in incorporating diversity and inclusion into all of our courses. So we're really lucky to have him. But I think that if you can find any person in administration, I think all it takes is one person, one faculty member to kind of be a champion for this project. Another thing that Liz and I, diversity methods.
Okay.
Liz and I were talking about the potential to turn this into an independent study as well.
Mm-hmm.
So a student who was doing this as an independent study could probably work more closely with a faculty member and build some relationships that way.
And one last thing, I know that we're running really, really close to time. I just wanted to add in, I actually did an independent study last spring on critical perspectives in library and information studies. I fortunately had a faculty advisor who was receptive to facilitating that, even though it was completely outside of their research areas. So sometimes it does just take that one person. And if anyone's interested in hearing more about that, definitely send me an email. So,
Clarification from the online question, and then we have one in-person question.
okay.
So they sort of also were talking about diversity methods, and someone said, do you think it's possible for an online student to create something like this? I feel like with advancements in tech, like this forum today, we could meet and work with on-campus students to bring these issues together and somehow circulate ideas.
Definitely.
Yes.
And I know Liz and I would love it if anyone who would be interested in this would email us, and we would definitely be open to collaborating online. Even though our institutions are just miles away from each other, we do most of our work online anyway.
Yep.
So.
So I've got one last question for you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Sam Quignon. I'm a recent graduate of Simmons SLIS. I was wondering, when we talk about articles and scholarly communication about diversity and inclusion, unfortunately and somewhat maddeningly, they are in journals that aren't, there's some that are in journals that aren't open access, and there's a paywall. When you're doing this inventory or bibliography, will you talk about methods of access for people who don't have the privilege of accessing that information that you have to pay for? So like preprints, or public libraries that maybe have the databases that include the articles, things like that.
That is an excellent consideration. It's something that I actually ran into this issue myself because I am primarily affiliated with Catholic University. I had compiled some suggestions to include for this particular syllabus, and then someone brought up the fact that actually I should have been looking in the University of Maryland's library catalog because they might not necessarily have the same access and privilege. I think that's a really great idea, and moving forward, it would be valuable for us to include in the directions looking for open source or open access journals.
And I'm also really interested in thinking about blogs too as a source to include here. There's some really awesome blogs run by librarians looking at critical theory issues that I think are equally valuable as anything published in the journal.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you so much to our virtual presenters.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having us. We appreciate it.
So we're going to dive right into our next session. Our fourth session is a panel with Nicole Kunha, Gretel McAllister, I'm sorry, and Mara Parker O'Toole. And they're going to talk about accessible libraries, essential and often forgotten.
Do you guys have slides? Do you have slides? We do. Okay.
We're We're going to take one quick second to get organized. And just a reminder, there are feedback forms on all the tables if anybody wants to fill them out sort of as things are going or in between presentations. It's really a valuable thing for us, but don't feel obligated, but we would appreciate any feedback form.
Oh, yeah, that's we can ask people. Oh, and then I'll questions. Thanks.